It's time for your statewide Alabama weathercast.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist McCombs with the Alabama Weather Network, and this is your mid-morning forecast update across the state. And had a foggy start this morning, especially in the southern part of the state. This is a really cool looking time lapse that we're able to pick up from both our Gulf Shores and Orange Beach sky cams. What you're seeing here is fog that formed inland being kind of pulled out into the Gulf, basically having a land breeze that's set up where you have warmer water over the Gulf. And you get some rising motion and you start to see air getting pulled out from the land out into the Gulf there, but it had fog embedded within it. So you can see this really cool effect here where you can kind of see how the air flows over the top of the tower, the condo towers, and in between as well. So really cool looking view there of that fog from our sky cams. Visibility across the state right now has improved in most spots, but you're still seeing some fairly low visibility in places like Birmingham and Coleman. 5 miles and 3 miles respectively, and then down in Mobile still fairly low visibility. You can see even in Florence around 6 miles visibility. We've seen some fog roll in near the Tennessee here recently. Down in the southeast there was more widespread fog earlier. That's mostly dissipated at this point. Had a few showers around in the northern part of the state this morning, but those have fallen apart at this point. But you might have gotten a few sprinkles or gotten a little wet here and there in places like Coleman and Hartselle and other places in the northern part of the state. But generally right now, just mostly some fairly thick cloud cover. So there's not a lot of sunshine making it through in the northern half of the state right now. But south of Demopolis, Montgomery, and Phoenix City, a good bit more sunshine showing up, although still a little bit of lingering fog down there towards Mobile. And as we take a look at our sky cams here, so last time I looked at this, we were kind of in the soup basically, but now looks like the visibility has improved again here right at our new sky cam in Florence at the Renaissance Shoals Tower, looking back towards the Wilson Dam here. So again, we can actually see the river now, whereas there was some fog around earlier. So pretty cool how that changes over the course of time, but you still see some low visibility kind of off in the distance there from that sky cam. As far as further to the south, the Region Center sky cam atop the Region Center in downtown Birmingham, 67 degrees there. Again, you can see some low clouds in the area, but not really fog per se, but definitely seeing that overcast sky that you could see on the satellite there. Further to the south, though, a lot more sunshine. So blue skies for the most part in Dozier, 72 degrees already. So we're pretty warm already, and we're still not even noon yet. So you can see the dew point's at 65 degrees. So more moisture has moved in over the last day or two, and so it feels maybe a little bit humid in some spots. Fairhope still has some clouds lingering or some fog lingering around as it's right on the bay there, and you see the 68 degree temperature, 68 degree dew point, so those matching, and that'll get you some fog every time, and you can see that there at the pier. And Gulf Shores, though, however, has cleared up. So earlier you saw that fog kind of streaming into the Gulf from that time lapse from earlier this morning, but now just lots of sunshine, 70 degrees there. Maybe some of the fog still way off in the distance towards the west, where there still is a little bit of that hanging around. Here are the low temperatures so far this morning. So it was kind of a warm start in the western half of the state. Only got down to 66 in Florence, 67 in Birmingham. And then as you move further to the east, it was a little bit cooler. Got down to 52 in Troy, 48 actually in Eufaula. Now you had a combination of a little bit drier air still left over to the kind of east and southeast, and also less cloud cover. And that allowed it to get a little bit cooler this morning than it did places further towards the west. Now, as far as what our sky watchers saw, they saw a lot of those fairly warmer temperatures as well. 60 degrees from Jordanhausen and Chelsea. Lee Wigginton and Jasper hit 61. Chris Cheatwood and Anniston 64. And both Daniel Harbin and Scottsboro and Bud Bean and Northport both hit 65 degrees. So here's the story for the next several days and through the weekend. So highs near 80 today and tomorrow. We expect, especially in the southern part of the state today, that we'll get into the low 80s, where we've got the kind of socked in overcast clouds right now in the northern half of the state. We'll see if we clear those out enough, but we started fairly warm, so it's still possible we get to that point later on this afternoon. Could see some records fall over the next couple of days, so we'll be watching that as far as high temperatures are concerned. Rain returns for sure in most of the state, or a good portion of the state on Friday, but it's not going to be a really widespread rain, so there's still going to be some places who may not get much at all, especially as you move further to the south. And in the next couple of days, the very far northern edge of the state, even before Friday, tomorrow in spots, the very far northern part of the state could get a few showers as well. Then after we get past Friday, the rest of the weekend looks mostly dry, maybe a few lingering showers on Saturday. Temperatures right now, we've warmed up into the 70s, especially down towards the south where there's more sunshine. 73 in Greenville, at 74 in Atmore. Gulf Shores is already 77 degrees, so they're definitely heading towards low 80s there. Further to the north where there's more cloud cover, we're only in the upper 60s, 68 in Birmingham, 66 in Coleman. The temperature change over the last 24 hours, it's generally warmer. There's some exceptions, but you can see it's 5 degrees warmer in Anniston, 10 degrees warmer in Gadsden than it was this time yesterday. So we kind of continue that slow warming trend as we've increased the moisture and everything in the atmosphere. Forecast highs for today, again, we'll expect to get probably mid to upper 70s in the northern part of the state, depending on the cloud cover. But generally, as we move to the south, we expect to get generally in the 80s, low 80s, 82 degrees in Geneva and in Dothan. Expect to get around 80 in Monroeville as well. So again, we'll expect to be very warm and a little bit humid for the southern part of the state. But you can see now that the dew points have risen up into the 60s throughout the state. So we have kind of completed getting some moisture back into the entire part of the state. Still a little bit lower to the southeast, but you can see we've got 70-degree dew points in both Selma and Gulf Shores, but generally mid-60s across a good portion of the state. And so again, you'll feel that a little bit more out there today than what we've seen recently. Futurecast is pretty quiet for today, except for just clouds up in the northern part of the state. Could see an isolated shower or two. We've got a stalled frontal boundary sitting here, so you might see an isolated shower or two as we move through the evening in places like Hamilton and Coleman, but nothing significant. And then as we move into tomorrow, a few showers possible as we get into tomorrow afternoon in the northern part of the state, but again, the vast majority of the state will see nothing and full sunshine in the south. Further on into tomorrow night, that's where this warm front is going to be lifting to the north. And we could get grazed with a few downpours in the very far northern half or northern part of the state near the state line. So again, you might get some of that if you're in those locations, but further to the south, you can see really absolutely nothing. It'll just get a little bit breezier as we prepare for the system on Friday. And then by Friday morning, that's when we really expect to start getting some scattered showers and maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder starting to come in to the western side of the state, and then moving more to the central and eastern side of the state as we get into the afternoon. So again, this will not be exactly what the radar will look like, but it'll look something like this with some scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm or two moving over across the state. But you see, it's not a full, just widespread, heavy line of showers and thunderstorms. So again, we're not expecting significant rainfall out of this, unfortunately. And then as we get into Friday night, still a few scattered showers and thunderstorms around. You see that again, a lot of the activity in the northern part of the state, you don't see nearly as much down in the southern and southeastern part of the state, unfortunately. By Saturday morning, a few lingering showers possible as the front drops towards the south, but there's not going to be much really out of that on Saturday. Sunday looks mostly dry. Monday looks dry at this point. And then as we head out into a little bit further into the future, Tuesday is when we expect kind of our next big system to come in, which could potentially produce a decent amount of rain, especially in the northern part of the state again. So we'll be watching that one. And so we're hoping that we'll get a little bit more rainfall after that. That's kind of Tuesday into Wednesday. And all the timing right now seems to indicate that this will be moving through before Thanksgiving. And then it will be clear by the time we get into Thanksgiving Day. And you'll see this blue here starting to come in underneath the clouds. That is indicating colder air starting to move in as we get into Thanksgiving. So as we're trending towards Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Iron Bowl Saturday, the trend is that we're looking colder. We can't get into the details really much at this point, but we're certainly looking like cold and probably dry is where we're heading towards at this point, but we'll continue to watch things. Here's your 7-day forecast for the northern half of the state. So again, just a spot shower possible today, maybe also tomorrow. We might see a spot shower too, very far north near the state line. Upper 70s, mid to upper 70s more likely today. And then maybe into the low 80s as we get into tomorrow. And then better rain chances, few rumbles of thunder on Friday. You can see that the lows are going to be pretty mild as we've increased that moisture, so we will not be seeing chilly mornings really for a little bit here. And then Sunday and Monday looking fairly dry. You can see a little bit of a cool down, not a major change in the air mass behind that front on Saturday, but a little bit of a cool down there before the next system starts to come in on Tuesday. And then for the southern half of the state, we expect to certainly be in the low, maybe even mid 80s in some spots the next couple of days. More sunshine than the northern part of the state and a little bit lower rain chances on Friday and into Saturday. Still mild mornings for sure. And then again, a little bit of a cool down as we get into Sunday and Monday before the next system comes in. Well, that is your Alabama forecast update. We appreciate you watching us here on the Alabama Weather Network.